all these strategies and values and everything else, how are you aligning those with the organization's overall mission, which I'm guessing is related to women's health?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning, our vision as an organization is that we want to create a better and healthier every day for everyone around the world. It really guides our actions. It guides our actions we take as a company, both internally and externally. And we've looked for opportunities. Again, with the clarity of that vision and purpose, it really makes it natural to then evaluate some of the choices we make, the policies we have against that. If a vision is maybe too esoteric and too high level, it makes it a little harder to serve as a North Star. And in our case, I feel like we've got the benefit of having a very clear purpose. So I'll give you a couple of examples. This year, for the second consecutive year in a row, we wanted to really highlight and shine a light on the inequities in women's health. And in many respects, part of what gave birth to Organon was this idea that we saw these dramatic and long overdue issues to be addressed. Huge unmet needs in women's health, and from real therapies and solutions to just health literacy and education and dialogue around the issues that uniquely affect women. And so we took International Women's Day, March 8th, and we decided in order to help really shine a light, we were going to give every one of our founders the day to care for themselves, a day off, and really call on other organizations to join us in that. So we did it for 2 years in a row, and it's an extraordinary experience. The entire company is focusing on their health or the health of the women in their lives, and it's created, I speak personally, reaching out to the women in my life, my mom, my sister-in-laws, my wife, to really draw attention to this. It's translated into real action, and it was a simple idea that we looked at and said, this is a great example of how we can live our values and really live our sense of purpose. Other areas, we're focused on addressing some societal issues as well. So we have in society there's a today problem and a tomorrow problem. A today problem is the rate of unintended pregnancy around the world is still exceptionally high. In both developing and developed markets, the rate of unintended pregnancy still can be upwards of 50% of all pregnancies are deemed unintended. So we have a portfolio in contraception that could help deal with those challenges today, make sure that women have education and access to effective contraception. The tomorrow problem is a declining birth rate around the world, where depending on what country you're in, the birth rate is not sufficient to maintain the current status of the population, and then all of the sequelae that follow that, from economic viability and sustainability to, the cultural dimensions that start to the cultural dynamics that change when the population starts to dwindle. So we have a fertility portfolio that we are trying to apply to make sure that when women choose when and how to have a family, that they have the tools available to do that and do that in a planful way. And so we look at our programs internally and say, well, are those fertility benefits available to all of our founders at an effective rate? And we saw that there were some pockets where that wasn't always the case, and we adapted. We made changes to our healthcare policies to ensure that we could support families, all of our founders, men and women, in getting fertility treatments at a rate that we felt was sufficient to really help them in their family planning journeys. Family planning doesn't always work, and we know that there are these could be emotional journeys, and so we also implemented a global care leave policy to make sure that women had the time men and women had the time for self-care, for care of a loved one, as they were going through those fertility treatments. We extended that also to include some of the reasons for taking care early. We've been talking a lot about inside the company. If you're managing menstrual pain, you're going through menopause, things that have not really been talked about a lot, especially menopause. They can have a debilitating effect on women. And so we wanted to make sure that to destigmatize that and make sure that that women felt comfortable if they needed to take some intermittent leave to deal with those menopausal symptoms, that they could do that. And the last thing I'd say, we had here in the U.S. we had a bereavement leave policy in the event of the loss of a loved one, but that leave policy was silent when it came to a miscarriage or a stillbirth, and it was insufficient as well. So not only did it not have the language of the policy didn't cover the loss of a pregnancy, there was an expectation that someone would come back to work 4 or 5 days after an event like that. So we thought that we look at that policy and we say, well, that's not aligned with our values and our culture and our purpose. Let's change it. And the joy of being in an organization that's still a startup and that mentality is within a day, we were able to look at that, make a proposed change, take it to the executive team, and they signed off on it immediately. And that change was implemented literally within a day. And that just doesn't happen at larger organizations. Usually, it doesn't happen at organizations 10,000 people large, typically. And so we're trying to hold on to that sense of, a startup at scale and that founder's mentality.
In this series, we will be speaking to a range of senior leaders who are pushing a data-driven and digital HR agenda. Make sure that you subscribe via your podcast app of choice and also via our YouTube channel for free and regular interviews with the digital HR leaders of the future.